Hey everybody, so it's Saturday, probably about 4 o'clock, 4:30, where I'm at here in Chelsea, Oklahoma. And I think, first of all, I haven't had any Wi-Fi service all day today, the whole town, for T-Mobile folks. Nobody offers Wi-Fi. The local restaurant, the mini-marts, I never saw anything like it, but without service, it's really crippled me a little bit. So the truth is, I'm not sure when you're going to hear this. So I'm going to be doing my middays and nights all together. But I think the best thing to do would be like sometimes in cinematography or pictures, they work backwards. So I think I'm going to try to almost do that. So first of all, let me start by telling you where I am, what may happen. I don't know what my shirt is doing over here. And then kind of backtrack over the day so far, which has been really eventful for what only seems like a few hours. So anyway, I am sitting on a piece of property next to a creek over here that sits right beside one of the landmarks in Chelsea, famous bridge I took some pictures of. And if everything goes the way I think it will, this will probably be my bed for the night. And that's kind of by choice, so don't get too concerned. And depending upon when you hear this might not even be played until tomorrow morning, so you may not even get this until I've already slept outside. But first of all, so let's talk about why I'm okay with this and why there are some nights when the weather's just nice. I really enjoy being outside, getting in touch with nature. I don't know what it is about bodies of water. A couple times in my life I've been able to live near a lake, and I could just stare at a lake for hours. I don't know why it is. In fact, I've already walked down by the stream and tried to climb down the embankment to get down there. The challenge with the embankment is getting back up the embankment when it's steep and filled with weeds and stuff. But anyway, so there's a good chance that I spend tonight out here. There's also just as good a chance that somebody right now, and I'll tell you about her later, is in town right now fretting over the fact that I asked her to let me stay out here, and feels it's her duty as a ambassador of Chelsea to find me, a roof over my head. And I'm sure she's working diligently on that, as she has been, along with Frank, for the last, I don't know, 2.5 hours. So that's why I'm where I am. It's peaceful as heck. I can kind of give you a quick panoramic view. Here's kind of a big dune, which is probably filled with red ants to come out and eat me in the middle of the night. But here's a big field, and over here, as I go, is right down the embankment down there is a creek. All right, there's a little bit of a creek. There's something biting me, and I don't know why. And anyways, so here I am out in this beautiful part of our country that I would never ever get to see. And again, how do I come to be in a field in Chelsea, Oklahoma, possibly sleeping out in it and loving it on top of it? So that's kind of that's the story for today. So let me tell you a little bit about how today went down. The people I've met, I've got more stories from this little town of Chelsea than I could even imagine. And I think I've met one of the more memorable people of the journey as well. So I left Veneta this morning bright and early, and some days I don't do the full 20 miles. I'm basically going 7 days a week right now. The next town, if it's 10 or 12 or 15 miles, that's where I'm headed. And today Chelsea was only like 15 miles. It was probably 18 from Veneta, but I was like 2.5 miles outside of the town line, really. I was really at the outskirts of it. And so I'm making good time. Looking forward to getting through. Challenged without, so I had some service, but not a lot. And then lo and behold, a pickup truck rolls up on me, and an old gentleman behind the counter says, "Where are you heading, cowboy?" And so I'm just heading up the road here a bit. I should have said a spell. I said, just heading up the road here a bit to Chelsea. He says, "Well, I'll make some room for you. Hop on in here. I'll take you up there." So probably about 5 miles outside of Chelsea when Jean picked me up. And as I tell everybody, I'm more than happy to go with you. If you mind if I get to ask you a few questions and talk to you a little bit? No problem at all. Sorry, I'm trying to get this thing in a comfortable position. Come on, damn it. Anyway, so we're talking. It's amazing what you can cover in 15 minutes or so. So with Gene, we stopped and on the way he was talking, but there were a few things I thought that he we were talking about. I asked him if he was from around here his whole life, and he'd come up here from Texas. Excuse me, I'll get a little Monster drink. I'll tell you why Monster versus something else another day. I've gotten rid of Monsters for my, I've replaced them with something really, really good. And got rid of Monsters, but the problem is this Monster, I was able to stop getting something cold, and my waters in my bag are really, I'm almost hot right now. But anyway, going back to Gene. So Gene came up this way, we were talking about some things, and you know, it's amazing the things I get to talk about with people in a short period of time, some of the topics, but I love little phrases, and Gene was telling me about how a deal went down, and he got his house, and he's rebuilding a 2-car garage for his wife, and he said a phrase, he said, you know, the way I look at it, Jim, if it ain't good for you, and it ain't good for me, no, that's not how he said it at all, let me rephrase that. He said, if it's good for you, and it's good for me, then let's go for it, but if it's not, there ain't no reason to go ahead with it. Basically talking about like business deals and transactions. And it's a pretty simple concept, but pretty true too when you look at it. So I got a kick out of that. And then we were talking, he's not a very political guy, nor am I, but one of the things I loved about Gene was he definitely gave some, he did a lot of what I like to do. Doesn't try to choke you with his beliefs, just kind of has food for thought and lets you kind of pick apart what you want to think or believe. So we were talking about his service time. He served. So thank you, Gene, for your service. But one of the things I thought was pretty, I don't know, maybe I'd do the same thing. When I asked him if he served, he had an answer at the ready, something along the lines of 23 months, 17 days, X amount of hours, X amount of minutes. Like he knew it to the second. He was an Army medic in Vietnam, and you could tell he was still a little bit bitter about the war itself. And he started talking about war, and he says, you know, one question I have to ask myself from time to time is what gives us the right to go in and tell some other country how they should be doing things? And I'm not saying he's right or he's wrong, but it certainly, you know, bears asking that question, because it does seem like we're kind of policemen to the world, and everybody relies upon the USA to go in and keep chaos from happening, if it's potential chaos, or to be the enforcers, and they kind of ride our coattails. And I'm sure somebody here and there probably thinks I'm an ugly American for saying so, but sure, that's my perspective for sure. And then we were talking about our current state of affairs in our government. He says one thing you got to give it to Trump. He says he does want to, you know, keep our country, you know, clean up the illegal immigrants. He said, but at the same time, what's funny about that is that you know, we're all pretty much immigrants. The only folks that are not immigrants are the Native Americans. And he said, and I know we got this thing with Mexico. He said, but heck, if you think about it, you know, our West Coast belonged to Mexico before everything went down, so they're more native than a lot of us are. So he goes, I don't know what's right and what's wrong, but it just causes you to think. And again, there's some truth in what he says. And they were talking, and I think just some of the observations I've had in talking to people through this journey, and this will be about as political as I'll ever get, something, is I think sometimes both sides misread you know, where we are with especially when it comes to immigration and things like that. I think the liberal side, you know, thinks everybody deserves a fair shake, and if you're in a country, certainly don't want to see parents separated from kids and things like that. I don't think anybody wants to see that. But I think they have this perception that the conservatives on the right side, the Republicans, are against immigration of all sets. That's my belief. I don't know why. I just think that's the case. Not everybody, but I think a lot of them. And I think the real truth is that I think Republicans are fine with immigration as long as it's done legally. If you want to come into the country, just do it by legal means and not over a fence or under the ground or something like that. So I think there's one misnomer. And I think that the Republicans seem to think that you know, liberals just have an open door to everything and anything, and I don't think that's it either. I think liberals want to have, you know, policies in place as well. I just think they're a little bit more open with their willingness to make those policies. So I think the right side kind of looks at the left side and thinks they just want to open up the doors to everybody and anything and kumbaya, and I don't think that's it either. So that's just my own observation. Anyway, so it was interesting. Frank said, where do you want me to leave you? And I said, this mini mart right here is fine. And I got out of the mini mart, and then there were three gentlemen sitting there, volunteer fire department, firemen, and chief, and two others for the Chelsea Fire Department. So they were having a fundraiser for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. I don't have a lot to offer, but I gave a couple bucks, so it's about all I had. Thank them for their service. And I do want to take time, I'm going to talk about another volunteer in a minute, but I do want to take this moment to acknowledge and thank the volunteers of our fire departments throughout the small towns of America. You know, volunteers of all sorts, but specifically EMTs and firemen and firewomen throughout the country. So thank you guys for what you do. And I talked to them, but here's what I found interesting. So since I've been in Oklahoma, I've found only a few people out of the it's probably about 80 to 2 in terms of Oklahoma State versus Oklahoma. I thought it'd be the other way around. So I got out and asked these three gentlemen, you know, which one they pull for. The chief told me Arkansas. The fellow on the far end told me Texas, which is sacrilege in these parts. And the middle fellow told me I don't watch football, which that's sacrilege to me. How a steak-eating young man from Oklahoma doesn't follow football is beyond me. So that was interesting. And I told him, hey, look, I went and got a drink and had to get to do some wash. And I started across the street to where the laundromat was, and there was a little farmer's market. And I walked over to the farmer's market. Another neat story is, so I met the pastor at a church that I'll be going to tomorrow, I hope, or today as you hear this. But I met a woman there, and we started talking, and she's from Patchogue, Long Island. I grew up in West Islip, Long Island, so we rekindled over that. And again, talking about volunteers, her husband was the chief in Patchogue Fire Department for 39 years, and she was an EMT for 30 years. So again, thank you to you folks for your service, and it was great meeting Kathy. Asked her what brought her out here, and there was some tragedy behind the story, and I won't share too much of it, but her and her husband had come out here and said, you know, 10 years we'll come back out and we'll settle down out here. And they got back home, and it took them all of about 18 months or so to get out here to Oklahoma. So that's kind of a neat little thing. And I met a few other folks. One young lady gave me 2 pieces of cinnamon bread, cinnamon cake, cinnamon bread. Anyway, it was delicious. Cinnamon cake, I think it was. I'm not sure, but it's good as heck. And I made my way over to the laundromat, which for a short while I got Wi-Fi. And I was able to talk to my kids and check in with you guys and see how you all doing. And got my wash done. And sometime during that time, it will lead me to the second part of my video, I got contacted by somebody that wanted to talk to me about the Route 66 underpass, not overpass, but underpass. And said, hey, we'd love to meet you if you're in town. Well, by the time I got to respond, tried to text her 6 times to no avail, kept getting message undelivered because Wi-Fi was gone. So I couldn't do anything else, and the fire folks had told me about a Main Street diner, and I said, well, let me kind of just see if that's the place in town to be. So I started walking through town. I walked right by, I didn't even know it, and I got to a corner, and a lady in the truck rolls her window down and says, are you Jim? I said, I am. She said, well, I'm Pam. I said, hey, Pam. So she said, hey, let's head over to the diner. So I will shut this off and pick back up at the diner. So I love you guys. Thank you for sharing and being part of this so far.